गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गाना शॉट। गाना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। टुडे इन द सीरीज ऑफ चाणक्य डिफेंस डायलॉग्स, क्लॉस, कासा and Gana Shot is bringing to you the next webinar, and this is on Pakistan. We're going to discuss Pakistan government, their problems and challenges. To discuss all this with me at present, I have General Gautam Moorthy and Brigadier Arun Sahgal. General Gautam Moorthy needs no introduction. Uh, Brigadier Arun Sahgal also needs no introduction. He is one of our strategic elders from whom we all draw inspiration. Right. Uh, Mrs. Tara Kartha and Dr. AYESHA SIDDIQUA are stuck somewhere. They will join us in due course if they can. But notwithstanding that, let's get the ball rolling. Sir, good evening to all of you. And at the outset, welcome to this evening's discussion and seminar on the problems and challenges which Pakistan government faces. Right. With this, let me start by saying, setting the stage as to where Pakistan is and what's happening in Pakistan and what are the issues which Pakistan government is confronting, and everyone knows about it for a lot of reasons. But before I get into Pakistan, please see the ticker tape. Claus, Kasa, and Gana Shot pay homage to late Mr. Ratan Tata, who I feel, and most of us feel, has been the greatest Indian of this generation, right? And I think he's done a lot to India, much more than many. I do hope the government takes note of this and it does something appropriate to his stature. Okay, now let's get back to Pakistan. Pakistan has been in news for a number of reasons. The CPC is under attack. Chinese have been, killed. Chinese interests at stake, right? And there's the issue. Today, if you look into the newspapers, it's all about the constitutional amendment. There comes. Welcome, Mrs. Tara Kartha. Welcome to the dialogue on problems and challenges of the Pakistan government. I was just outlining what's happening in Pakistan. Today, if you take the news, like I said, it's all about the constitutional amendment and all that. But then that's just the garb for army to gain more control. And this is one of the things which all army chiefs have been doing. The security situation is deteriorating, and those they're supposed to do something called Azme Istikam. Nothing is happening, and the army is sitting tight where it is and being incapable as it is. Well, elections in J&K happened, and they've gone out so successfully that there are views in POK, and many people talk of the repression which is going on in J&K. Economy, it's in doldrums, and it continues to stay in doldrums, right? And I don't see any way it's going to come out of it in the near relation. And significantly, Pakistan has poor relations with all its neighbors. Okay. And this seems to be in perpetuity from here on. There is political instability, there's radicalism. In fact, as far as the neighbors and everything is concerned, no one seems to be interested in Pakistan these days. They're like Palestinians. Everyone knows they're there. Everyone knows they're troublesome. And no one wants to help them, right? And unfortunately, Pakistan doesn't have Iran to help it out. Well, despite this, the Pakistanis talk big. They talk of being an atomic Shakti, which is probably the last bastion of the weak people. And they also talk of their geopolitical location and what greatness it has been, and all that. And then, of course, Islamic radicalism is on the rise. These are broad facts. It's in fact a fact sheet of Pakistan. With this, what I request is give your views, what the Pakistan government is problems are facing, the challenges, and whether they can get them over. And if they don't get over these challenges, where is Pakistan heading? With this, I'd give the floor to General Gautam Moorthy. Sir, all yours. Please take it on.
Thank you, General Shankar. Good evening to you, Jai Hind. Good evening to my Guruji, Brigadier ARUN Sahgal, sir. Good evening, Dr. Tara Kartha, and good evening to all your viewers. This is, I think, it is CASA's 62nd webinar, and I have lost count of the number of discussions and webinars we have held on Pakistan alone. It is of great interest to us, and today Pakistan, we can see, is grappling with a multitude of significant challenges which are deeply interconnected, and it's affecting its political stability, economic health, and its social fabric, not to mention its serious security issues. I would like to start with a little bit of background that February 8th elections, which we had discussed in great details, it was marred by not just allegations of military interference, lots of proof of military interference and vote rigging. And although the PTI, despite being Imran being imprisoned and disqualified from running, and his candidates having a very tough time facing headwinds, they still managed to get 93 seats. A coalition government was formed by the other parties despite not winning a majority, backed by the army. But PTI, as a consolation prize, they allowed it to keep Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but I will come to that a little later. Sorry. The PTI supporters have been facing repression. Thousands of them have been arrested, and the party's name and symbol were removed from the ballots. Earlier, the judiciary's decisions, such as acquitting Nawaz Sharif in the corruption case, was seen as aligning with the military. There were regular internet shutdowns. But what is to be remembered is that 44% of the electorate was under the age of 35. And this represented a huge chunk of the youth. The youth and the middle class today are completely supportive of Imran Khan. We have discussed this earlier. The army is split down the middle, with the seniors going with status quo and the juniors, rank and file, and families of rank and file and juniors supporting Imran Khan. The military has had a pernicious influence on Pakistan's politics. I don't have to get into the details of that. Ever since independence, it has directly or indirectly ruled the country for over 3 decades. And now they have realized that the best way of handling this country, the army has realized, is a hybrid regime where some kind of elements of sham electoral democracy you show, but the military continues to call the shots. And if you recollect, the amendments to the Pakistan Army Act and Official Secrets Act have expanded the power. So it's a hybrid martial law. We could call it a hybrid martial law, not exactly a martial law, because that would invite opprobrium and would invite sanctions. So they call it a hybrid martial law. Even in the field of economics, what is this Special Investment Facilitation Council that they've set up? How can a military of any country have such influence into the economic matters of the country? So, to my mind, the military has achieved its initial objectives, which was to ensure that power continues, status quo is maintained, without looking at what the people need. And this fractured mandate, and it was fractured because of the maneuvering, and has given it place to do more maneuvering and to control this weak coalition. Security challenges, terrorism, militancy is not going anywhere. It ranks in the world as the 4th most affected country by terrorism militancy. TTP is posing a threat. Taliban's return to power, I cannot forget how their ISI chief reached Kabul and is preening himself like a peacock in Serena Hotel. But that return of Taliban to power has led to a 52% rise in terrorism-related incidents in Pakistan. It's facing cross-border attacks. I think Dr. Tara Kartha will be speaking more about it. There's terrorist violence within it. Afghanistan today seems more peaceful than Pakistan. Political landscape has been further complicated by the government's attempts to suppress dissent through legal action against opposition leader and media outlets. As of this morning, I do not know what has happened today, but as of this morning, Imran Khan's lawyer has not been able to contact him for over 5 days. Mr. Gandapur, who was the elected CM of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, is missing. Nobody knows where he is.
He'll come back.
He's come back, sir. Then, but as of this morning, when I was researching for this, I realized that that he was not there. Journalists are being picked up. Their families are being harassed. So also with political and social activists. And the army's involvement basically weakened all civilian institutions. On 6th of October, the government officially banned the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, the PTM, labeling it as a proscribed organization under the Anti-Terrorism Act. So the Ministry of Interior cited the group's activities as detrimental to national peace and said it's a threat to their sovereignty. This ban comes, they had planned a gathering of Pashtun leaders, which is, we all know is called a Loya Jirga. And many see it as a preemptive move to stifle. This has caused very deep tensions between the PTI, which is governing Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the PTM. But the federal government is fighting on too many fronts. Situation in Balochistan, very grim. You know about the assassination of 2 Chinese engineers and one of them injured, 15 other Pakistanis. Number of vehicles were damaged with a suicide bomber. And I'm not going into the past details of past attacks by Baloch groups fighting for independence, attacks on Chinese workers, and specifically the Pakistan Army. Situation in KP has been exacerbated by this ban on PTM and, of course, the earlier ban on PTP. Now, you must remember that all these are Pashtun groups. Pakistani soldiers are being regularly attacked from across the Durand line. And if you recollect last year, the forcible return of Pashtun refugees has fueled what we could say is a crisis of Pakistan's own making. Pashtuns are being given no option but to take up arms and fight for their rights. And this ham-handed approach of this Pakistani government, which has been pushed by the military to do this, by the Pakistan Army, particularly through its actions against the PTM, it reflects a broader trend. You know, they're suppressing, this was going on earlier also, but it has become worse, of civil liberties, dissent. It's intensified its crackdown, not only against PTM, but against all opposition groups. They have used rangers within the city to disperse protests, arrested numerous activists. PTI has announced a decision to press on with its, we saw the demonstrations last week, and again the ham-handed approach towards the demonstrations. But they have said that they have instructed all their ticket holders and provisional assembly members to ensure coordinated participation. Not only are they protesting what they call an illegitimate government, but also they are saying that the government is distorting the constitution through controversial amendments. And within quotes, I'm quoting them, they said they're determined to oppose any moves to turn the judiciary into a mere rubber stamp for the ruling elite. And very strangely, the justice system, we all know about the Chief Justice. Now there are going to be 2 Supreme Courts of Pakistan. Has anyone heard about 2 Supreme Courts of any country? One, they're calling it a Constitutional Court, whereby they're going to look into the Constitution and make amendments. And the other, the Supreme Court of Pakistan. This PTI has taken objection to it in a very major manner. They're resisting attempt by what they call the Gang of Three and an extension mafia, accusing these groups of, their leaders of trying to get extensions. You obviously mean the Army Chief, the Chief Justice, and of course the Prime Minister himself. And they call them mandate thieves, political clowns of Form 47, and all kinds of abuses. The regional tensions, I think Brigadier Sahgal will cover that, particularly with India and with the other countries. With India, we have always been saying on this forum that Pakistan Army's obsession with J&K is the root of all ills of Pakistan. I personally have no reason to change my opinion today. Their refusal to come to terms with the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A is not helping reduce the tensions, although the ceasefire is holding. Economically, Pakistan is in a very, very deep crisis. Inflation is 26%. Foreign exchange reserves are, I think, they're at their lowest in recent years. The debt burden is likely to be 73 billion by next year. They depend on IMF and IMF bailouts. They've had 23 since independence. A very precarious situation. Food and poverty, food insecurity. 40% of the population lives below the poverty line. And impact of climate change. We know what happened. The floods of 2022. Millions, extensive damage to homes and crops. Lot of land is not irrigable today. So this is huge. International relations also, I will leave to Brigadier Sahgal to cover that. In conclusion, all I'll say is that the political landscape remains heavily influenced by the military. Despite the appearance of a democratic process, the 2024 elections, I've already said that how they have tried to shape the outcome, and there's growing resistance to this within the Pakistan Army also. Although General Asim Munir has weeded out a number of senior officers and middle-ranking officers, quietly weeded them out, but there is still a lot of rage seething within. So, country faces significant challenges in establishing a stable civilian rule, addressing these economic crises, and managing complex geopolitical relationships. They are in for a very, very difficult time, and that's all that I have to say. Thank you, General Shankar. Back to you.
So thanks a lot. So I think you made a few interesting points, which I'll put it out to everyone. The hybrid regime is here to stay. So it's more of a martial law, not in name, not in maybe not
Yeah.
in name, but in an actual fact on ground. It is like that. You said Afghanistan is more peaceful. I would like to highlight even the Afghani is stronger than the Pakistani rupee. Over the past 1 year, the Afghani 1 year back, for one Afghani you could get 3.5 Pakistani rupees. Today you get 4.1. So you can imagine where the Pakistani rupee is going. Right. The refugee factor which you mentioned, which they sent back the Afghan refugees back, is going to create a lot of problems and will keep the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, unstable. That's the jelly region of Pakistan. The way I look at it, it's always shaking one way or the other. Then this business of constitutional court. Just think, you're going to have a constitutional court in the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court, which is going to look at the civil affairs, and then of course they're looking to legalize the military courts. So if you
Yes.
are somewhere at the top, in the crosshairs of the army, so you can be sorted out through three courts. And this constitutional amendment will give legitimacy to the Pakistan
Military
army,
courts.
which they're trying. And if you look into the history of the Pakistan society as a whole, every army chief has tampered with this constitution either through the front door or the back door, or he's abrogated it. So there is a lot going on. And macroeconomic stability in Pakistan comes only through IMF loans or Chinese loans. If you take in between periods, it's always this thing. We all know it. An important point you mentioned is about water, agriculture, and all that. I'd like to put it out to everyone. Agriculture is 20% of the GDP, but 60% of the people subsist on agriculture, right? And water is a depleting. They're already in the state of absolute water scarcity. Uh, this breeds a subterranean factor which doesn't come. When we talk of the governance of Pakistan, the actual status of the people of Pakistan is almost hidden from us. We look at Pakistan, a nuclear state, army, this, that, and all that. The teeming 250 million Pakistanis, day by day, are losing livelihood and getting into poverty, and this must be one of the only places where polio still is resident. Right. With this, I'd like to invite Dr. Tarakata Aran. Please, all yours.
Thank you, General Shankar. Thank you so much for having me on this. I think I completely sort of go with what General Gautam Moorthy said earlier in terms of the crisis. In fact, he kind of took all my main points. So I'm very happy to things which I was going to say, which was
He's taken
basically
everybody's point.
Sarkis. He
Sorry.
made some excellent points, so that was really good. So the fact that it is actually, though we just said it in passing, the fact that in terms of statistics, you look at the UNAMA reports, their violent incidents are far below. The Pakistanis have gone up like it's like a shooting graph. It's gone up, and Afghanistan is sitting there. You look at UNAMA's report, they are reaching out to their communities, they are reaching out to their, to the various ethnic groups, trying to bring people along. They have banned this poppy growing. They are trying to ban ephedra. Ephedra is what leads to meth, production of meth, and exact opposite direction is Pakistan's state. So it's the irony is tremendous, because as you said, the attacks have gone up nearly 56% according to, I mean, that's a very good statistic which their own institutes have brought out, which is very well researched piece. Huge rise, and all of it on the border regions in Balochistan, right? And not all of Balochistan, parts of Balochistan, parts of KP. So, and from what we suspect is that a lot of the meth, which we are seeing huge, massive, seizures in India, it's coming from Pakistan, because the satellite pictures show that the huge bazaars which are there, which used to be there, have all been dismantled. So, what we are seeing, therefore, is that the Taliban also becoming increasingly accepted. People are beginning to say, okay, let's see how this goes. I do not at any time concur with the Taliban's treatment of women. It is pathetic. Their new laws are pathetic. That's a different story. In that respect, Pakistan, of course, is much better. But having said that, now, if you look at the crises, then which are the crises which are hitting them? One is, as we said, of violence. Crisis two is that of ethnic divisions. As you said, the Pashtuns are now sort of, even though there's a large Pashtun majority in the army, right? I mean, how can you do this? At some level, how can an army with such a large Pashtun base turn around and say, oh, you know what, we are going to ban the Pashtun movement, which is entirely peaceful, right? So that second crisis is an ethnic division, the Baloch, the Pashtuns, to a large extent divisions within Gilgit-Baltistan as well, which never comes out, those divisions, but it's there. Third crisis, of course, as we see, political chaos. The present government is not seen as legitimate by the people. And the sad part is, it is not even making that effort to get that legitimacy. Once you want to get legitimacy, what do? You start getting your local governments together. You start trying to govern even Sindh, where the PPP has been there for years. Where is the governance? So they are busy fighting among themselves, and that it sort of feeds, by the way, it's not just the army, it's also the political parties which are driving these constitutional amendments. So that is crisis 3. Crisis 4, of course, is economic decay. Crisis 5 is radicalism. You had that shootout, the policeman shooting a doctor on blasphemy charges. That was the 2 in 1 week. Policemen shooting these people. Where do you see such things happening, right? So that's crisis 5, which means radicalism in different forms has entered into the body politic, into the security forces, into the forces who are supposed to protect the state. So that's, to me, is a huge crisis in governance. And crisis 6, which is actually the most serious of all, and which, by the way, affects us as well, is that of climate change. And that could be your next war. Because if the water starts drying up, that is where you're going to have a problem with India and with China. We'll have to see which way China goes, but that's a different story. So in all, you could say that all countries are going through multiple crises, right? Everybody has crisis. But with Pakistan, the problem right now, which is different from what was earlier, Pakistan is perpetually through some crisis. The difference here is that all of this has come at once. It's not just, they are an economic this thing sometimes, the political stability, then you sort of whether, by and large, in South Asia, people will take inflation, they will take a lot of nonsense as long as they feel that the government is trying to do something about it. The government is with them. They're trying to get things. Nobody gets that sense here. So that is where, so now all you need is that one crisis and things could get out of hand. And I think that crisis could be the banning of the PDM, because there are Pashtuns in Karachi, they're all over and they're very proud people. That could be, or it could be, of course, the crisis. They've just got, of course, bailed out by the Saudis. The Saudis, I think, have stepped in. To what extent, we don't know, because you can never believe what you see in the Pakistani media. We'll have to check exactly what has been promised. But China is not giving those freebies anymore. The recent deal which was signed on the power providers, the
IPPs.
IPPs, yeah. So that is a pretty tight deal. They're not just writing off. That's a huge debt that has been 6 billion debt, which has been cancelled. And the Chinese ambassador basically said, "Look, we are providing you with electricity. How about paying us?" I mean, that was finally what he said. So the deal which has been signed, which is being papered over as this major, something which has been given to them, is a very tough deal which China has got through. So even the Iron brother is having a problem. It's not done with Pakistan at all. I won't say CPEC is finished. It is not. But there are problems there as well. So I'll stop there. So I just gave an overview of the multiple crises involved.
Thanks a lot, madam. I think you also made some the different points which you have made. I think I'll put it across. Pakistan is emerging as the drug sector, right? And now that the whole focus of drugs has shifted to this side of Afghanistan, from Afghanistan, this side of the Durand line, ethnic divisions are here to stay, and they're pretty bad. What's interesting is something when you talk of ethnic divisions. I believe that the Pashtun Taffuz movement is to hold some sit-ins and strikes and demonstrations in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and for that period, TTP has withdrawn its operations or suspended its operations. Now that's a very dangerous signal for Pakistan. The day TTP and PTM get together,
Yes.
right? It is a very, it's a cocktail, heady cocktail. The same way, if Marang Baluch and DLA get together, that will be a second cocktail. And both these are on the cards. If the earlier one comes, then the issue which radicalism and all will go into the bag. That's it. Yeah, all in one crisis. Yeah, the next thing is, Pakistan has a thing of doing deals with anyone, and it'll sign on any paper, but it is never paid back. It'll never pay back. So who's fooling whom? Whether the Chinese are fooling themselves or the Pakistanis are fooling the Chinese is there. And actually, if you see, they're interlocked with each other. They can't do without each other. And to that extent, I grant the Pakistanis who have now got the Chinese on a hook. I mean, people say, Chinese are the ones who can sort out Pakistan. I don't know whether that's really true. It's debatable. That we'll see. With that, I'd request Brigadier Arun Sahgal. Sir, you had a lot of interaction with the Pakistanis of late. May I request your views, sir?
Okay, thank you. Like Dr. Kartha said and Gautam has said, I mean, everything that has to be said has already been said. But I just highlight a couple of things in a a sort of a chronicle way. I'm going to talk about 4 or 5 issues. What is the current developments, the law and order situation, the political state of play, economic state, the state and center, and some of my impressions. I'll also cover the international relations part of it. So the fundamental point which we have to see is that Pakistan is facing an extreme sense of political upheaval and instability. At this point in time, there are 2 dates which are very important. One is 15th and 16th of October, which is the SCO meeting. I think it's 15th and 16th. And the second is 25th of October, when the current tenure of the Chief Justice of Pakistan gets over, And there is now a constitutional amendment is being made to A, increase his tenure, and B, create the constitutional courts which we all talked about. The what is constitutional court they're trying to create is there are two proposals which are on the table. One proposal is to create it outside the system where the judiciary will have no role to play. I mean, the chief justice will not have a role to play. The prime minister will decide who are the judges, and they will look at all judicial and governmental issues. So that's one issue. The second is there is a problem coming up over there. Maulana Mazur Rahman is not agreeing to this, and he has to be brought into paper. Latest is that PPP delegation met him, and he has sent the counter proposal, and his proposal is not to create a new constitutional court, but to create a separate wing of the Supreme Court where the governmental and constitutional matters will be looked at. So this is the critical. So the bottom line, as things stand today, are two. One is there is a crisis brewing up between the government, PTI, and the judiciary. The government is not keen to make the next in line Mansoor Ali Shah as the Chief Justice of Pakistan. They are absolutely against him because he is seen as a pro Imran man. The second element is, as far as the Sharif government is concerned, they are very clear that they cannot allow Imran Khan or PTI to start their political activities ad lib in Pakistan. If that happens, it will be a death knell for this coalition government. So the constitutional amendment is the key issue. They have got 4 or 5 members less to two-third majority. How they muster up, what drama that takes place is something which we'll see. As far as the SCO conference is concerned, Section 245 has been imposed on Islamabad and Rawalpindi, and the whole cities are under the control of the army. Now I come to the role of the army. Everybody is aware, all of us have said that army is the key player. But the point is, apart from all the things that the army had done, the army chief has said that he will get economic assistance from abroad under what is called the Special Investment Facilitation Council. That has by and large been a bogey. Nothing has actually substantial has come. In fact, the problem is that they are making promises which are not being fulfilled. And today, as far as the Pakistan is concerned, the total debt owed to China is $26 billion. That is the total debt. And Pakistan has no means to pay. That's the reality of life. And therefore, second thing is that they have electricity. Electricity is plenty in Pakistan. Please don't think there's no electricity. But only thing is nobody can buy it. It's too expensive. But the cost, because what the Chinese do is, if you produce 100 megawatts, they charge you for 50 megawatts, and they take that money of 50 megawatts, put it in your account. They say you owe us this money, whether you sell this electricity or you don't sell it, it's not our concern. So the issue is for Pakistan is that they do not have that money to pay at the cost that they're paying. In fact, I was told by a very senior former foreign secretary from Pakistan, who said, "Bhai, I pay a bill of 35,000 rupees every month on electricity. And then when maximum I can run is one AC in my house." That's the state of affairs. And how is a poor man, you rightly brought up, how is the poor man going to exist with this kind of state of affairs? Law and order, serious situation. We have had 3 cases this week. First was the 6 soldiers were killed, including a lieutenant colonel, in an attack in Northwest. Then we have had this attack on the Chinese convoy. 2 Chinese have been killed. Chinese are livid, and large number of people have been injured. Reports continue. And this morning, as we speak, There have been 20 miners killed in an attack on a coal mine in Balochistan and 70 injured. So there is an absolute mayhem in Pakistan. They cannot simply able to control the situation. What is the political state of play? Sheriff government, supported by army, is doing everything possible to ensure Imran Khan and PTI does not get a political salience. That is their only single point agenda, to keep Imran Khan out. The idea is to break up the PTI and consolidate its political hold. So in this, it's only possible in Punjab and Sindh because Balochistan and, like everybody says, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are outside their scope. They're ungovernable by Islamabad. They are being making promises which are not being fulfilled. And today, as far as the Pakistan is what's happened here, the total.
Okay, so
Okay.
there's some loop.
The other issue is PMLN and PPP have failed to consolidate their power in the country, and like Dr. Kanta rightly said, they are much more busy fighting political battles than governing the country. There are no interest in governing the country. In fact, they are not interested in governing. And the joker of the pack is the Home Minister, who said, "Why did he leave when they couldn't find the KP Chief Minister?" He said he left from the rear door. Then he's asking, "Why did he leave from the rear door?" And then he has all the number of CCTV cameras, etc. I mean, a joke is going on. In all this, please understand where this narrative of the PTI is coming from. PTI narrative is not against so much against PPP or PMLN or other. The PTI narrative undermines the authority of the army.
Yes.
And undermining of the authority of the army basically means is that there is a political opposition building up within the country sans the control of the army. That's the criticality that we have to look at in Pakistan. That's a worrying sign from their perspective, because this now how the situation gets escalates or de-escalates from here on, I do not know. PTI is not going to give up, and that is why this whole 25th drama has to be played out. And if it cannot be played out, then we will probably see more blood on the streets of Pakistan all over the place. Another point we have to also notice is that Imran Khan's party is becoming very, very popular with the youth. Okay, there are two elements in Pakistan: the landed gentry, the bureaucracy, the people who are well-to-do are pretty happy with PMLN and PPP because they are part and parcel of the establishment of what we call the Khan market gang of Pakistan, or whatever you can call the equal. Those guys are pretty happy. The younger lot, the working class, the guy who has to go and earn his money outside, he is absolutely unhappy. And he is with Imran Khan. He looks at his messiah. Now I come to the state of the economy. As per a Princeton professor, the convergence of skyrocketing domestic and external debt, unsustainable pensions liabilities, and failing power sector is plunging Pakistan into an economic abyss. Growing perception outside is Pakistan heavily relies on generosity of its external benefactors and is not willing to do anything on its own to sort out the situation. Consequently, Pakistan is getting in the loop of downward spiral. Disillusionment is growing, and bright young minds are unwilling to stay and are seeking opportunities abroad. Reality is that Imran Khan's popularity is less about his politics, but is more about his frustration of the people. And the last point in the economy is that despite the present state of the economy, the government is unwilling to prioritize the welfare of the people and is continuing to follow a policy of economic order in which allows an unrealistic budgetary allotment to defense, subsidies, and to business entities. So this is the state of the aware of the economy. Last point in this is the state of center and the center and the states, or what would say the focal point is Punjab and the provinces. There is a huge disconnect taking place over here. The Punjabi elites are living in a bubble, and there is a disconnect and a building resistance in the mind, and people are unhappy. But this is a very interesting phenomena and a very serious phenomena. And of course the poor people really do not have any option. They are looking for my baap ki sarkar. They're worried about electricity. They're worried about food. They're worried about living. So why this is permeating into the government's bad policies, lack of welfare, lack of looking after is permeating into terrorism in Pakistan. They try and blame us for the acts of terror, but it is not. Baluchistan Liberation Army's actions are not uh, to throw out the regime in Islamabad. They are demanding their rightful share in the developmental processes and the gas prices, etc., which are there. They are paying higher gas prices than the subsidized gas prices in Lahore. So this is where the whole issue is coming about. Now I give you some impressions. Uh, for the first time in our private discourse in our track to dialogue, both the retired senior military guys, I would here like to make a difference, not the lieutenant generals, but major generals and below, and the senior diplomats, retired foreign secretaries, retired senior ambassadors, including a gentleman who's been ambassador, high commissioner to India, are all saying the same thing. Situation is becoming bad. The army is becoming very, very rough. The people are being rounded up. There is absolutely police Raj or army Raj taking place. Prices are going up. We are really, really unhappy in our country at this point in time. So this is the reality they were talking about. Now this is I agree with them because one of the issue that happened was that while they were making political statements on Kashmir, etc., Kashmir has to be done, etc., and they were not letting go on Kashmir, but they were much more forthcoming in trying to look at stability of the ceasefire, continuing of the ceasefire, looking at means to ensure there's a peace and stability. Article 370 is not talked about at all. Article 370 is only talked about in the General Assemblies of the United Nations, but not otherwise. And they are also looking at, they are keen that we start the process of discussion with India. Kashmir, they say, cannot be taken off, but they are willing to talk about trade, etc., etc. So one of the issues that we had put down in our reports when we came back earlier was on the sidelines of the major meetings that India should break the ice, and SCO summit, the foreign minister is going there. It'll be a good idea if the foreign minister has a chat with these guys. Please understand that. I mean, my view is that we cannot isolate Pakistan. Pakistan is a country which is about 300 million people. It's like it was rightly said, they are going to go through a huge climate problem, water shortages. We might have them standing on our borders and coming inside in our territory if the food runs out. So we have to engage with them. How do we engage with them? Level of engagement is something I'm not even talking about. What I'm simply trying to say is putty kind of an aptitude perhaps has played its role and we have to move forward. Now on the foreign policy front, there are two, three things going on. One is fundamentally Pakistan is not giving up its military policy. There, during our debate discussion on the nuclear CBMs, one of the senior SPD guys who comes there, he's a diplomat who comes for our discussions, was very clear. He says, we are developing nuclear weapons as not as a political weapon, as a war fighting weapon. It's an element that provides us our security. This is our insurance policy vis-a-vis India. And they post Balakot, they believe that they have the intrinsic resilience to deal with any low-level escalation, because beyond that they feel that the things can go out of control, etc., etc. So the B, they are buying weapon systems, they are buying latest equipment, etc., from the Chinese. Now, what are the Chinese up to? The Chinese are up to something very interesting. We have heard rumors earlier that Chinese are going to create their first overseas command, and there was a toss up between where the headquarters would be, whether it will be in Djibouti or whether it will come in Guadalajara. The latest reports to us indicate, at least the points which I am picking up, we are picking up in open source intelligence, please, is that the Guadalajara is going to be converted into a military base of sorts. It will never be called a military base. It will be called a base where the Chinese will locate their assets. Initially, they will come for repair and technical support, and subsequently they will get converted into some various elements, and some of the equipment which comes on those ships, submarines, etc., can be offloaded, and including, say, for example, a DF-26 battery, cruise missile battery with a 1200, 1500 kilometer range, they can get located over there. But the Chinese push is coming. That's for granted. Please believe me, it's coming. It's going to be Chinese building eight conventional submarines for Pakistan. And the another element which the Pakistanis are now very, very upbeat about is that they have an underwater launch capability based on their submarines, the French submarines. They have the tubes from where they can launch baburs, and they have also deployed their very low to low frequency communication equipment with these submarines. So, as far as they are concerned, they have all these elements in place, and of course, who's supporting them, we all understand that. There is an interesting article which came out recently where the Pakistanis have made an interesting pitch, and here again they play a very interesting card. They're telling the Americans, don't abandon us. Please don't abandon us, because if you abandon us, we'll have to no option but to go on with the Chinese. And we are not very comfortable with that. So the bottom line is, we don't like spaghetti, we don't like your noodles, we want your bread. But on this issue, please understand, there are a large number of communities and institutions in the United States who still are very, very well disposed towards Pakistan. Their commitment to Pakistan, the CIA elements, the Wilson Center, the U.S. Institute of Peace, all these institutions are very, 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 very pleasantly disposed about the thing. Even the Congressional Research Service people. So they have a constituency over there. Similarly, they have a constituency in the West Asia, Saudis, etc. So the bottom line is, Pakistan is in trouble. Pakistan is politically facing upheavals. Pakistan is having economic issues. But Pakistan is not a finished state. They have enough people who will bail them out. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. A lot of points made by you, but I'll focus on the very important ones which you have said. Uh, the Chinese push is coming, and for all we know, Godar will be the unofficial overseas Chinese command, and I think that's a very important thing, which will is likely to happen, but it will be heavily contested by the Americans. Whether the Americans can stop them or not is to be seen. And of course, you highlighted the deep links between USA and Pakistan, which have never gone away. And they have probably revitalized them to wean them out of the Chinese grip to some extent. Okay. Uh, the real the real battle today in Pakistan is PTI versus army. And this is unprecedented in the history of Pakistan, where a political party has taken on the army directly. Where this will go is a $1 million question. And you also feel that we should start talking to them and engage with them at some level. With these points, I'd like to point two, three things out, and then we'll take a very interesting question, and that we could discuss it out rather than taking all questions. Uh, one thing about the Pakistan army which we need to realize is it's a political animal. The Pakistan army is a political animal. If you analyze its history, after every defeat, it has grown stronger. Armies after every defeat normally grow weaker or they rebuild themselves. No, but Pakistan army grows stronger with every defeat. It gets the grip of Pakistan stronger. So how do you defeat an army of this kind? You have to defeat it politically, and you have to handle it politically and approach it politically. And that is why when most of the time when I say when people say, look, it's getting equipped itself and militarily strong and all that, I said that's not an issue. How do you defeat it politically is a larger issue, right? And the center of power we all know is Pakistan. In Pakistan is the Pakistan army. The center of governance is the government, whatever the government of the day, and that has gone absolutely awry. Whether the center of power will have the capability to step in and stabilize that center of power, center of governance, is the $1 million question we all have to face. So very clearly from all our discussions, what has come out is that Pakistan, there are two faces to Pakistan today. Externally, one, which is atomic and strong and militarily strong, a lot of external links still going strong, all that. Internally, absolutely on a precipice. Which will take over what is the interesting point we have to see. Okay. This is where this question comes in. I think it is a very, very interesting question which has been put up. It is, when do you predict, one, Pashtun independence from Pakistan of 6 crore Pashtuns in Pak plus Afghanistan? Two, are 50 to 75 lakh Baluch in 350 kilometers, 350,000 kilometers of Balochistan, a critical mass for independence? I mean, when I put it on this, you'll club it with all what we have said. Is Pakistan on the verge of an internal breakup? It will remain in problems, is one way of looking at it. But this is the issue. Like I said, the day the militancy in either of these places coalesces with the political movements there, the critical mass starts forming. And that is why, this thing of TTP and the PTN, some connect seems to have been established. I don't know whether Marang Baluch and BLA there is a thing. So I'd like your views on that, and we'll start, Madam, with you, because you've been writing on these lines quite a bit. Over to you, Mrs. Tara Kartha.
Okay. Can you hear? On the question, I'll take
Yeah, we can hear
both
you.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. You
Pashtun-
give it together. The whole idea is to get a larger picture.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. Okay. Simply put, Pashtun yes, Baloch no. Simply why? Because of exactly what they said. You don't have enough Baloch in that large square area. The actual portion where you had resistance continuously, we're not talking of this August like kind of presence, is actually one small square strip of territory. You cannot occupy Balochistan. Neither can the Pakistan army occupy Balochistan. That's a different story. But to have independence, you need a critical mass. That is not there in Balochistan. It is there in a portion of Balochistan which is next to Iran. That is there. So if you're thinking of one slice kind of being pushed away, possible if Iran wants it, but the trouble is Iran doesn't want it. So there you have a problem. In Afghanistan, the reverse is true. The Pashtuns want Afghanistan, the Kabul will, any regime which Pakistan has sponsored in Afghanistan, nobody has accepted the Durand line. And the Taliban won't either. So the Pashtun is a very strong identity. It's a very powerful population. It is possible entirely that this could happen, especially now. That's why when I was speaking, I said the biggest crisis is their, this banning of the PTM. That is probably the straw, the last straw that could break the camel's back, because it is a peaceful movement. And everybody knows that. And Manzoor Pashtun is in hiding. Some of his people, that guy, his deputy, his arrest has just been extended up to October 5th. I mean, how long can you go on doing this? So I think, yes, it's an interesting question. However, I will also add in, however, states don't really break up that easily. I mean, this is, if you look at international relations for donkey's years, unless there is a very strong outside push. If you want to look at former Yugoslavia, you want to look at former Soviet Union, what caused it to break was an outside factor. So states by themselves don't really crumble that easily unless there is a push from outside. So I'll stop there.
Brigadier Sahgal, sir, your views on this whole story, this part, because we have generally covered most of the thing. I think this is the critical part, and your views on this.
Sorry, can I go on a slight tangent?
Yeah, please, sir.
You see, we have to look at this whole issue from a slightly different perspective. In the last paper which I wrote, I talked about shatter belts. Okay, Pakistan is a huge shatter belt. It's got economic problems, it's got internal problems, but it's a geopolitically priced space. It's a price geopolitical space in which there are large number of entities who are playing their role, and which the United States, China, Afghanistan, Iran are all big players. Some are big, some are small. So the fundamental point is this, and it's a nuclear power. These entities are not going to allow the breakup of Pakistan in a manner in which we think that's going to happen. What does not allowing breakup of Pakistan means? We have seen what can be done in Bangladesh. Okay, we have seen the interest of $70 billion being invested in Pakistan of the Chinese. Chinese are not interested in the money. The money is gone. Money is gone. But Chinese are interested in the fruits of that money. So they want to ensure the credibility of these places. So to that extent, those factors alone will be important parts in answering this question, how those play out. But there is one criticality, and that criticality is this, is like I was trying to explain, and it was said by others also, is that army is being questioned, and army's role, the political role of the army is being questioned. Now, if the questioning of the army's political role becomes so salient in the Pakistani discourse and in PTI and becomes so strong, and other elements, and because of the poverty, the indifference, etc., the large-scale rising takes place in this thing, then some of this is possible. And if that is the possibility, then I agree with Dr. Kartha totally that it can happen in the Baluch area and not so, in the Pashtun area and not in the Baluch area. Baluch area is too vast, too this thing, etc. But see, there is another element which Tapi. The Iranians are pushing for Tapi. We would be happy if there is Tapi. But Pakistan has not paid its share. Still hasn't paid its share. It is not taking off. And they have an excuse, sanctions. Sanctions है इस करके हम आपको नहीं दे सकते, political instability है, etc. So the preemptiveness of a state or the ability of the state to create some state strong strategic assets that bring about state consolidation have not occurred. I mean, when we create infrastructure in our country, and we take the roads to the villages, we take power to the villages. What we are doing, we're doing a state consolidation process, and in which we want people to come together and become an Indian, a Bharatvasi. That's something which the Pakistani political leaderships don't understand because they're so busy infighting. And then with this infighting and the army's declining role, I do not know what will happen. But I still say the external players will try and maintain some kind of stability or bring about political changes to ensure that the Pakistan doesn't break up. That's my view.
Thank you, sir. General Gautam Moorthy, sir, your views. Because I'm not going to take any other questions more. Anyway.
I have, I quite agree. I think I've been listening very carefully to both Dr. Tara Kartha and Brigadier Arun Sahgal. I don't have much to add except to say that a point that Dr. Tara Kartha brought out was that there are so many Pashtuns within the Pakistan Army. There are Baloch regiments within the Pakistan Army. So the Pakistan Army is more than cognizant of the fact that beyond a certain point, it can only uh, boomerang on its own basic ethos and organization. You cannot have a whole province. I think Pakistanis would do well to recollect what happened in 1971 when the East Bengal Rifles and all these people, the regiments that were posted in West Pakistan were just sequestered and kept separately. The Bengali officers in their army were not trusted. Are we going to see a situation like this? So Pakistan knows that their policies towards alienation has its limits, and if they've not learned their lesson, I'm afraid it's a little too late in the day to tell them this. Yeah, after all, you've had former chiefs from the Baloch regiment. It's a very fine regiment, and those of us who have read that book, A Matter of Honor by Philip Mason, uh, can bear testimony when we've seen how well this regiment has fought in the Second World War. Ditto with the Frontier Force, which consists mostly of Pashtuns. So Dr. Tara Khattab brought it up very well when she said that don't they realize this? And that is the point that the Pakistan Army has to be careful of, otherwise all bets are off.
Thank you, sir. I think all three of you made very interesting points and a case where there's a good case for Pakistan to auto break up, but there's also equally good case to prevent its breakup by the international actors who will go their whole distance. Let me put it in a slightly different manner. I'll give a different view to this whole story. There is the ethnic divide between the Pashtuns and the rest of the country, and there's a critical mass developing in Pashtun areas for some kind of autonomy breakup, whatever you call it. But having said that, that's a basic fault line which exists. The second major fault line, which Dr. Tara Karta mentioned about, is about the climate change and water.
Yes.
Because that is getting, for the simple reason, 3 years back, I'm talking about situation 3 years back, the Indus waters stopped reaching Karachi. Water started increasing. The seawater started increasing in upstream of Indus River 3 years back. It has come to a state of absolute water security. And I've always felt water is the real werewolf which will eat up Pakistan. And then now I think has entered or is on the verge of entering absolute water scarcity. What is absolute water scarcity? It is the availability of less than 500 cubic meters per individual per day. They don't have that. and with that booming population and all these issues, I don't know whether we need to start thinking of something which is so far not been thought of, right? Because there's a fundamental, because the nation subsists on people, and people subsist on the geography of that area. And that geography of Pakistan is undergoing a massive change. It's not a matter of war, it's a matter of their internal way they live, and that is why you see a lot of migration going on. History, if you go into, people always start migrating when the land doesn't support them. And that is something which has to be seen. And we'll leave it at that, and I'll leave it at that. And I'd like to thank all of you for giving your views so beautifully. Before we say goodnight for the day, I'd like to put across something. Uh, every prime minister of Pakistan after his tenure has hit the jail. Or, of course, he's been hanged like Bhutto has been. Right. And every chief of army staff after his tenure has first gone abroad. Later, he might come back, or he might come back dead like, Musharraf, or on his deathbed. Or even like what's happened to Ziaul Haq. So Pakistan has a very funny history. So the politics has also got a history. And that history and the present day realities don't go along. And combined with the pulls and pushes of the Chinese and the Americans, anything can happen. And it is as toxic as it can be. I leave it at that. Sir, Brigadier Sahgal, sir, General Gautam Moorthy, sir, and Dr. Kartha, thanks a lot for your views on
Thank you, sir.
Pakistan, its problems and challenges. On behalf of everyone and all the viewers, I'd like to say thank you and good night to all of you. Till we meet next time, Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind, good night. Thank
Good evening,
you.
everybody. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.